widespread across the region. Now tonight, that storm system pushes off to the east, so we actually see some clearing, and for tomorrow, clouds and sunshine, breezy and cooler with a high of 70.
All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. You got a legal question, get it here on the air. That's right, every Saturday, 1 to 3. You know it, we answer your legal questions, 540-0580. Or for Jay, 540-0580. So that's numerically correct. We have one of my Facebook guys goes ballistic whenever one of the people on here says O instead of 0. I am certain that if you went to his house, everything is in order and the toothpaste has a key in the back of it and it is neatly wound. Maybe he'll enlighten me on Facebook about the truth of that. Again, 540-0580 if you want to get your legal questions answered. And, of course, Penn State's got a big game today. Was it Nebraska they're playing? Did I have that right? Nebraska? Kent State. Oh, yeah. Well, no, I know nothing then. See, when did they play? How did I think it was Nebraska? I don't know. I think they're going to win pretty handily against Kent State if I had to guess. But what do I know about football? I like the Buffalo Bills, so go figure. Yeah, right? 540-0580 if you want to get in on the conversation. What did I want to tell you guys? Well, first of all, I did smoke some great cigars from Harrisburg Beer and Cigar this week. And if you haven't been over there, they're off 3842 Union Deposit Road here in Harrisburg. Stop over there, tell them Carl sent you. They got a great selection of beer. Of course, you can always use some of that. But they have an amazing humidor, absolutely amazing selection of cigars. Everything from the price conscious all the way up to an indulgent cigar, depending on what you like. So, and I just can't say enough about them. 540-0580. Still trying to get on the Ken Matthews show, you know. He still has never called me, but I think the reason is we actually have history. A lot of people don't realize this, but many years ago, Ken and I had a relationship of sorts, and I told him that I was having his baby, and he freaked out, and he's just never talked to me ever since. So there's not much I can do about it. I probably just shouldn't have faked the pregnancy, but I was afraid our relationship was, drifting apart, and sometimes that's a way that I've read in a book you can get somebody back. So, well, what, Matt, you don't believe me?
It's a dirty trick, Carl.
I know. And I didn't think he'd actually fall for it. But, hey, what can I tell you? I guess biology wasn't mandatory in his high school. I don't know. 540-0580. We'll get in on the legal questions here, whatever you guys want to talk about. If you got a neighbor who's causing you problems, those neighbors will plant the trees right by the fence so it hangs over your roof. Or you can have one of those pesky spouses who's out cheating on you, and maybe you want to find out how much money it's going to cost you to get divorced. Not just what you're going to pay the lawyer, but how much money the cheating spouse is going to run off with. Because believe it or not, people come into my office and they're like, well, I have proof of adultery, so it should be really simple. I keep everything, right? And you're like, well, no. Adultery is one of 20-some-odd factors to be considered in the distribution of property and alimony. And basically, in a state where we now let you get divorced for any reason, fault is rarely even a grounds for the divorce itself. So, yeah, it's interesting. And if you got pictures, I'll look at them. But that's really not for legal purposes. That's just more a prurient thing. But long story short, it's not going to give you a huge tactical advantage in the divorce. On the other hand, though, it can, depending on where you're at, what county you're in, what judge you have. I've seen some judges take a much stronger stance than other judges in other counties. But anyhow, long story short, I find it interesting. My other favorite divorce story is people come into the office and they say, well, this divorce is going to be easy because my husband's not so bright, and over all the years I've convinced him to let me deed all the property in my name alone, and all the cars are titled to me, and the bank account's in my name. So really he doesn't have anything in his name, so we can just get divorced and I keep everything. And I have to say, no, marital property is marital property, and how it's titled is interesting and maybe even legally relevant, and once in a while will prevent something from being considered marital property. But anything acquired during the marriage, whether you title it in one name or the other, or both, is marital property. Same thing with debts, as a general rule. So the other thing you do, and we've talked about this on the show, you expose yourself to liabilities, because now if you crash your car into the neighbor and they sue you, you don't have the protection of the tenants of the entirety, which is the joint ownership of marital property that prevents third-party lawsuits from reaching you. again, if you want to get in, you have a divorce question, you have a child custody question, child support question, 540-0580. And I know our phone lines might be working again. Yeah, that's like there's still like a laundry list. Remember we talked about the lightning strike last week, and there's still laundry lists everywhere of equipment that needs to be repaired and replaced. So I'm just glad that the HP studio has most of what it needs up and running right now. Well, what else did I want to talk to you about? There's a call for the Supreme Court justices, the United States Supreme Court justices, to no longer serve for life. People want to amend that. If you have a thought about that, I'd like to know what you think. I like the idea of them serving for life because it does give them true independence. Now, they can be impeached and removed, but short of that, nobody can take them out, and they don't have to leave at any particular time, which really gives them absolute freedom from political consequence. But some people believe judges should be more politically accountable because they are 1/3 of the branch of government and the power structure. And so the idea, at one level is if they're completely removed from politics, which is a fallacy, as we know, but if they were completely removed from politics, then they would only rule like the philosopher king and only do good things to help us or good things to keep us safe and pure and those sorts of things. And there'd be a check and balance on the raw politics that we see in the other branches. But we know courts are political. What the founders, I think, wanted to do was create a balancing act, though, where somebody could stand up and say, no, you can't just do it even though it's popular. And that's the bulwark that the judges provide. And giving them a seat for life means that they are unaccountable, essentially. And if they're unaccountable, essentially, then theoretically there's no recourse when they tell the majority of the Congress and the president that something they want to do is unconstitutional or inappropriate. On the other hand, we do see some politics in the court. And I've been told, I don't know this firsthand, but I've been told that there is log rolling that goes on where people trade votes just like congressmen trade votes. Some courts would tell you that doesn't happen. Other courts have acknowledged in the past, or justices have. In fact, there's a woman from one of the state Supreme Courts who was ousted, who wrote a book recently about how it really goes in the background. And the court was not very happy with what she wrote because she was talking about a lot of the interesting things that happen internally in the court. Of course, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has had some interesting times lately with one of our justices being removed from the court due to her campaign finance violations with her sister out there in the other end of the state, which also reminds me, by the way, in Pennsylvania legal news, the Mike Vion bonus gate appeal is clicking up through the Superior Court, so we should expect an answer on that pretty soon. And DeWeese also lost his Superior Court upholding it, but there's really good issues there. The problem is, and again, this is where I'm tying this back in, politics in courts. In Pennsylvania, the Superior Court justices are elected every 10 years, and you have to run for retention, not election, but you have to at least run for retention. We have the same thing in the Supreme Court. So there's an argument that when there are politically controversial topics, like the Sandusky appeal, like the Vion appeal, like the DeWeese appeal, and maybe somebody's going to get some callers coming, so maybe somebody's going to jump in on this. Those justices have a pressure to do something, perhaps. Now, some of them would tell you that we're insulated from it and we don't really fall for it and we don't get sucked in on it. But you always have to wonder, would you want to be the guy who freed the legislator who the public thought had stolen from the public wheel? And if so, would you want to, be up for retention in a year? And so the independence of the judiciary is a little bit circumspect when election cycles are upon us. Ben, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on over in Camp Hill?
Oh, good things and some bad things, but mostly good. But in any event, you brought up the subject of the Supreme Court and any justices not being politically accountable. That's like going back to the feudal days where I'm the king and I here do decree. That kind of you're right. It defeats the whole purpose of having someone in there that's accountable for life. I totally agree with you. I just think the whole idea is ludicrous.
Yeah, the counter argument to that though is if the judges are too political,
right,
then you don't have anybody who's willing to say, wait a minute, there's a sacred document here that we can't just change because we feel like it. We have to go through a very elaborate process that's designed to make change very hard and slow. And that's,
I see that.
And so these are these, I always like to say, there's no right answer. And so if you have them with too much, with completely no responsibility whatsoever, because they can still be impeached, okay? So theoretically, if the Congress and the president thought that the Supreme Court's constitutional interpretation was so poor, they could remove him from office on that basis, but it would require an impeachment, and it would require a trial and a removal, and it would be very hard to do. So there is some level of accountability theoretically, but realistically, there's none.
Well, of course, which brings me back to point one, and being that, I don't know, it wasn't definitely this show, but I'm a pretty long-time listener, and there's another show that you were on where you brought up the fact about the same subject relatively.
Right.
Only thing, this time you took a different track, and I totally agree with you that time. I mean, that's why I'm going to state what I'm going to state, is the fact that you can get a law, a really good law, makes sense, all right, and then somebody takes it to a lower court, and then that gets appealed, and then that gets appealed. It finally gets up to where you have these judges reinterpreting the law, in essence, creating a whole different law that's like 120 points away from
right.
why the bill was passed to make that law. And I don't think that's right either, where it's just too much power in the hands of one individual to be appointed for a long time.
To borrow an analogy from physics, one of the problems is when you measure something, you change something.
Yes.
And it's the same in law, quite frankly. When a court interprets something or measures what the law means, the very act of measurement itself somehow changes the thing you're trying to you're trying to measure in the first instance. I got to go to break, but thank you very much.
All right, have a good day.
All right, Ben. When we come back, we'll talk with Dave and Tom. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Hey, I'm back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Doing the big Saturday show. What do you guys want to know? What do you want to do? Let's talk about the law. Dave, I got you here in 1 second, but first I want to remind you to call RJ Gold Auctions. If you need to liquidate an estate or business, I recommend you call RJ Gold Auctions. He can buy outright or sell your items at auction. RJ can be reached at 645-0061. He purchases outright items such as medals, pins, patches, tokens, awards, badges, most historical collectibles. So, by the way, he can pay you right away. RJ Gold, 645-0061. But if you get on an estate, somebody passed away in the family, and you need somebody to come in and auction this stuff up, well, RJ will come in there and take you through and tell you what he can do for you, 645-0061. And, of course, he has this awesome auction Sunday, September 29th at 1 p.m. at the American Legion in Harrisburg. That'll be a week from tomorrow. PA License Auctioneer AU 005798. Boy, that was a great live read. I did so good there. Dave, you're on the air. What's going on, brother?
Oh, how are you doing?
Good. What's going on?
Sorry you didn't get the day job there.
I'm just trying to beat up on Ken Matthews for fun. I'm just going to shame him on inviting me on, and then I guess now I popped the whole story about our fake pregnancy, but
that's all right. Recently, how do I start? 15, 20 years ago, there was a district attorney that came up missing, and they found his car, and he's never been found. And I'm assuming he's still missing. Is this still the DA that has something to do with your case and Sandusky?
Well, yeah, but Greg Corr was the original DA who had investigated those issues and determined that nothing credible was worth prosecuting back in the day. And then his car was found near an auction house or something, and his laptop was found in the river. One of those sorts of things. Are you driving to the Penn State game?
No, I'm driving myself.
God, it sounds like it's raining out.
No, not yet.
Not yet. All right, yeah, that's that. But yeah, he was Greg Carr, the one that disappeared. Now, he had a brother who had mental health problems who committed suicide around the same age. Okay, so. And I met Greg Carr a few times. I actually used to do some cases up in Center County back in the day, DUIs and whatnot. And I always thought he was an odd bird, anyhow.
Okay, so this attorney, they've still never found the body, correct?
No, they haven't found nothing. I mean, he could theoretically, but here's how it works. You ever hunt?
Yes.
You ever try to find a deer that you just watched fall down in the woods?
Numerous times.
Right. And you're like, how can it be this damn hard to find this deer? I mean, I swear it fell right around here somewhere. And then, you finally find it, and you're like, wow. Well, imagine now if you don't even know where to start looking.
Right.
I mean, so that's my theory, is it's very easy for a body to just disappear and then maybe someday be found, or not for years. But one never knows.
But this isn't this Hell's Angel guy. Is this the same person?
I don't know. All right, Dave, I'm going to let you go. It's getting a little loud there. I got to let you go. Sorry, but the rest of the people out there are like, Tom, you're on WHP 580. What's going on?
Yeah, thank you, Carl, for taking my call. I got a question to ask. If you're separated but not legally separated, can you still file married jointly on your taxes?
No. What we tell people when you call the show with a tax question is call the CPA. And the reason for that is I have no idea. Now, in Pennsylvania, I can tell you one thing, though. We don't have legal separations in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. We have either you're living together or you ain't. And the filing of a divorce effectuates a very clear legal separation, okay? But for purposes of if somebody files a divorce and you've lived separately for 3 years, we actually look at the separation date retroactively based on the facts.
Yeah, there was no filing for divorce. So.
Right. But I'm trying to say is we look retroactively. My point being is the filing of the divorce doesn't actually create the separation. The actual physical separation and living apart does.
Mm-hmm.
And so for factual purposes, if you've never filed a divorce but you've been living apart, we can certainly argue that you're now legally separated under Pennsylvania law.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know.
So that's the answer on the law side. The tax side, you got to talk to somebody that knows stuff. I know nothing about that stuff.
Okay.
All right, boss.
All right, thank you.
540-0580. Fiddler. You're on the air, bud.
Hey, how you doing? I was asking about that law that was dated. It was dated like 1992. When you get out of prison, you are supposed to get a $20 gold piece. You're supposed to get a horse, and you're supposed to get a cat and ball gun. They never took it out of the law book, but they don't do it no more.
Right.
How can they get away with letting people out of prison that have no money? Okay, they have no money. That's why people keep them going back in prison, because they have no money. But in the law books, state is supposed to give you money to get back on your feet. And back in the old days, that's what they did. They gave you the $20 gold coin, they gave you the horse, and they gave you a cap and ball gun, so that when you left, you didn't get shot. You had the horse so you can go to town.
Right.
They didn't have cars. They gave you a $20 gold piece so you can go into a boarding house until you get back on your feet. It's still in the law book. But they don't do it no more. And I don't understand how
they're
getting away with it.
The answer is if it's the law, then you can sue to enforce it. But I've never heard of such a law. So where would we find it?
It would be in what's called the Blue Book Law. I don't know how to say it because I'm on disability too. The Blue Book Law Book, dating back, and it's still in there. They never changed it, so it should be in the regular law book too. But no one ever tries to enforce it. When they get out of prison, they're like, "Oh well, I don't have a pot to pee in, so I'm going to go out and rob somebody."
Right.
And they don't realize, by law, by state law, they're actually supposed to give you money to get back on your feet.
What state is this? Pennsylvania, you're saying, has this law?
All over. The whole United States. It's been in the law book since the 1800s.
Well, it may be there, but it may have been abolished. I don't know. All right, I'll look for it, my friend. Interesting point. I don't know if it's out there or not. I would think if it was, given how litigious most of these prisoners are when they get out, somebody would have filed a lawsuit by now. But it's quite possible that there's a lot of laws on the books, which I always get in this debate with some of these guys on when it used to be the Durgan show. I'd get on there and debate with some of these fellows about it, and they'd be, Obama has to follow the law. But not the sheriff shouldn't enforce the gun laws, but Obama has to follow the law. And you'd be like, well, okay, he has to follow the law. But executives can choose which laws to prosecute or not prosecute and which laws to enforce or not enforce. And so, in some states it's illegal to put pennies in your ears. And some other state you're supposed to hit your wife. And according to Leviticus, you're supposed to kill your wife under certain circumstances. But nobody enforces those laws. So, what can we do? Jay, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on down there in York?
Hi, Carl. Since we can burn the American flag as and call it free speech, I guess we're okay to write on paper money now?
Well, the short answer is you got your radio on there.
No, I don't.
I'll get a little feedback. That's okay. The law says, Title 18, I pulled this up, I saw your call. Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 17, Section 33, says it's mutilation of national bank obligation. So it mutilates, cuts, defaces, disfigures, or perforates, or unites, or cements together, does anything other than any bank bill, draft note, or other evidence of any debt issued by any national banking association, the Federal Reserve Bank, or Federal Reserve System, with intent to render such bank bill, draft note, or other evidence of debt unfit to be reissued, shall be fined and imprisoned for not up to 6 months or both. But notice, with intent to make it unfit to be reissued.
Okay, good. So I can keep writing praises to Mr. Obama on dollar bills.
You can, and you can still stamp "Where's George" on there and all those other fun things.
Great. All right. Hey, thanks a lot.
All right, my pleasure. 540-0580. See you guys after the break. Well, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580.
Hey, girls. Tomorrow night.
Remember this old...
Delta.
Remember the old Delta, right? What did I want to tell you? So I'm reading the news today. You can't make this up. As of right now, the University of Alabama is ending white-only sororities. I mean, goodness gracious me. Of course, it would be from Alabama. And I know somebody's going to get mad at me for saying that, but it just makes me chuckle because, up here in the progressive North where we just hate Mexicans and other illegal immigrants, best I can tell from what people yell at me on the radio about, they're stealing our jobs. Down there in Alabama, apparently, they still haven't integrated some of the university events. So we'll get JC on here.
Remember that prom from a few months ago?
Yes.
I forget what state that was in, but yeah.
Oh, goodness. They're separate but equal proms. David, what do you want to talk about?
Hey, Carl. You remember Lyndon LaRouche?
Yes.
One of the things that I remember about him was that he was, I guess, one of those people that was fighting the federal government's ability to tax us on our income. And I never got the end of the story. I've heard it kicked around a few times that some people successfully won or got through it. But could you help me out with that? Just what is the law?
I don't know. So we'll have to study that one on the internet at some point. I talk to the CPA. Rosado.
Yes.
How are you?
Pretty good.
What's going down?
Well, I have a quick question. I just got a judgment for a pay to stay on a rental I own. And I'm just wondering, actually two questions. I'm just wondering, how financially in debt does a landlord have to be before, you get a judgment to have possession over your property? I mean, because the tenant is currently $3,000 in behind payment.
Well, it's a pay-to-stay judgment, so they have to catch up 100% in order to stay, okay? So they'd have to pay all $3,000 in order to stay, if that's what the judgment's for.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Another question.
Let me stop you for 1 second, though. Okay. Practitioner's tip. If you're the landlord, the next time you sue somebody for back rent,
yes,
find a separate violation of the lease as well. Because if there's any non-financial violation of the lease, then it cannot be a pay-to-stay judgment.
Right.
All right. But go ahead. Next question.
Next question is that the judge kind of threw me a nugget when he said you might want to consider, too, because she physically left all of her possessions and did not hand over possession of the key, so I don't have possession of the property. That there is a new law out that's stating that the landlords are now responsible for storing their property and paying for the storage?
I'm not familiar with that. And what I mean by that is I'm not familiar with such a law being amended or not. I know that what we tell people is take their property, box it up, and put it in the basement or somewhere, and write them a letter that says, if you don't come get it in some reasonable period of time, I'm not going to be responsible for it.
Gotcha. Okay. And one more. Am I able, because I am interested in selling the property, selling it with this transition still happening?
Yes.
Okay.
You can do that. Now, the buyer might want to know what's going on, obviously.
Of course.
One of the questions the buyer always has is, does it come with tenants or not?
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. 540-0580. I got an unknown, but I don't know who that is yet. What else was I supposed to tell you about? I'll be speaking at the Harrisburg Liberty Alliance on Gun Rights and Self-Defense. That'll take place on Tuesday, October 1st. So that'll be a week from this coming Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Hoss's Steakhouse in 61 Gettysburg Pike, Mechanicsburg, PA. It's open to the public. So, yeah, we're going to go to Hoss's. We're going to eat us some meat. At least I'm going to eat some meat. You vegetarians can come on down, too. I'm sure they have some fish or eggs or salad on that big buffet you can eat. And of course, the desserts aren't bad either. So it'll be the Hoss's, 61 Gettysburg Pike, from 7 to 9 p.m. Tuesday, October 1st for the Harrisburg Liberty Alliance. I'll be talking gun rights and self-defense. So those of you who have been bugging me about wanting to come out to one of these and saying, when are you going to do it again, Carl? I couldn't make it to Cross Keys. I couldn't make it to Chambersburg. I couldn't make it to Harrisburg Hunters and Anglers. I couldn't make it to... All right, if you haven't made it, I don't want anyone of these like, oh, man, I got to eat dinner that night. Well, you can eat dinner right there from 7 to 9 at the Hoss's, Tuesday, October 1st. We'll get the gun law. We'll get the gun law on. Jimmy, you're on the air. What's going on, my friend?
Demonstration. I'm going to show you how I earned $593 in less than an hour. The system is easy to use. It's got just 3 short steps, and it'll help you profit several $100s on a daily basis.
I don't know what Jim's talking about there. Michael.
How's Carl today?
I'm not bad. Yourself?
Good, good. I just caught the last part last week, but I didn't hear what happened, that you got stopped when you were leaving a liquor establishment last week.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't hear it.
What happened is I leave the liquor establishment, and, of course, I'm just falling down drunk. Not really. And I pull out, and I see the cop car pull in behind me as I'm pulling out, because that's what they do. They sit up there by the Trindle in Cumberland County sometimes, and like
late at night, or
yeah, 1 o'clock in the morning ish, or somewhere at 12, somewhere at 12:30 maybe, or something like this. And they're waiting for you. Basically, you pull out, and of course I see them behind me, and I drive all the way down into town, and I stop at the red light by the McDonald's, and I see them behind me, and I go, these guys are going to pull me over. Watch this. So I just go through the red light. Turns green. I go forward. I put my blinker on, pull into the McDonald's. They pull in right behind me, and bloop, bloop. And up he comes. And next thing I know, of course, I was like, why did you stop me? Well, what's your probable cause? And he's like, oh, you were weaving. And I'm like, yeah, weaving out of the parking lot of the Trindle. I didn't get I only got a little video because I wasn't ready. I got to get a car equipped with cameras, because as often as I get pulled over, I want to be able to just get the whole thing on tape.
Did you have to show your license and everything? Go through all that?
Yeah, I gave them my license, and they wanted the registration. And of course, I'm like, I don't know.
Did they know who you were, and just send you on your merry way?
Yeah, we come back to the car. He's like, oh yeah, everything's fine. Well, because they knew. Here's the thing. I think they knew right away that I had no signs of intoxication whatsoever. I actually was hoping they'd pull me out of the car and beat me up, because I'd make some money. But what the hell,
I was just curious. I voted for you. I think you should have got Durgan's thing. And nothing against the new guy there, but he fits right in, and I'm an independent, but Democrat can't do anything right, and a Republican can't do anything wrong. I mean, I listened to him a couple of times. Right away, they're starting to beat up on Obama and everything like that. And I said, well, he fits in a bunch of those other people up there.
Yeah, the answer is some people think that the talk radio audience just wants a simplified red meat version of politics. And I'm a firm believer that the listeners out here are a much more diverse crowd than the...
Yeah, there's 2 sides of the story. Not everybody's always right. Not everybody's ever wrong. But I like to listen to somebody who can be a little more open-minded and at least listen to the other side.
I always joke, like, you've got this is the average WHP listener back in the Durgan day was, or the average Durgan listener was, owned a bow, smoked marijuana, occasionally went to church, probably got drunk once in a while, and was probably in the military at one point. But in other words, like it was a real crossover of beliefs, and so you really, Durgan would get, when he would do the marijuana thing, just an unbelievable number of people calling and saying marijuana should be legal. And if you thought the Durgan audience was just made up of, like devout,
well, that surprises me.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. It's a huge. There's a huge crossover of conservatives and libertarians that listen to this radio station. We've also got Jay listening, who's our Democrat.
Jay from Lebanon. I hear him all the time.
he's our token
shows and everything.
He's a very thoughtful guy, though, and I enjoy when he calls. I do enjoy when he calls in.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
But it's just funny. And then we got the Gambone over there in Lebanon too, Mike.
Yeah, the preacher, the pizza guguy,
the pizza preacher,
the church man.
It's like I always said it's like if I were Howard Stern, he has a whack pack, right? This is my whack pack of regular callers that I can rely on for something funny.
Well, Jay, I can listen to. The preacher guy, he just goes on and on about the same old crap. But I still listen to
well, and sometimes
sick of hearing me too. Sometimes.
Well, here's what I do. Then I got to be honest with you. Sometimes when you get somebody like that on, right? I like sometimes just to hear what he has to say, but sometimes it's just like, even if he's going crazy, I almost want to listen to it just because I'm fascinated.
Well, you keep listening. I'll pass on it.
All right, my friend.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much. 540-0580. Hank.
Hi.
Talking about
taking my call.
Talking about whack packs, and now I got a call from Hank. I don't know if you remember Hank the Angry Dwarf.
Right, exactly. I voted for you too, by the way.
Thank you.
I have a question about it. I got a phone call the other day it was actually from my son, who no longer lives with us. He's grown and gone, but they said they were from a Harrisburg law firm, and that my son should call, and he referred to a file number to give him an extension. And so I called my son, and I said, what could this be about? He said, I don't have a clue. I mean, really. And my son's not the kind of a person who would have some kind of a judgment against him or whatever. So the number he gave me was 888-999-1455. So I Googled the number because it just didn't smell right to me for some reason. And what I got was the postings I saw on the Internet talked about scams, and they say they're a debt collector or they're, doing various and sundry services.
Right.
And so I said, I decided and told my son, I said, don't respond to this. It sounds like a scam to me. What I should have done was I should have looked up this law firm's phone number to see if it was an 888-999 number, and I suspect it wouldn't be. Anyway, give any advice? What should I do? Or
well, the one thing you could do is your son could call him, or you could call him and get him on the speakerphone and just find out what they want. My thought is, whenever I see that it's a law firm and they have a, quote, file number, and that's what they want you to call in about, it's almost always a debt collection firm.
Yeah.
Because I'll give you an example. If I was going to call you up and I have somebody in the office who wants to purchase a property you own, wants me to approach you.
Yeah.
Or I found out you're in error in a state. The communication's a little bit more direct, and it's usually in writing. Debt collection firms quite often will call you because they want to get you on the phone, because once they get you on the phone, that's when they can tangle you, like, come on, pay your obligations, do this sort of thing, and sort of suck you in. So that's my guess.
We don't have any debt. I mean, we don't have, we have debt like everybody else, but there's nothing that could be.
Well, that's my point, though. It doesn't mean it's valid, though, either. And they may have gotten his name. So I have a client right now who's got a credit card that they never had for years and years and years, and it paid off. And they're getting letters from some big debt collection firm saying they owe $9,000 on this credit card, which is completely untrue. But unfortunately, until they address it as what we're doing, it won't go away. So I'd call them and find out what it's about, and if it's a scam, here's the only way I know the scam works. If they really are a scam, it's like this. Well, we have a debt for you, and you say, well, I don't have such a debt, right? Well, in order to verify the debt, I need your name, date of birth, social security number, and your mother's maiden name, and we'll make sure that it's not really your debt. And that's how that scam works. So if they're asking for that kind of information, a legitimate debt collection law firm, if asked, you say, listen, send me in writing notice of the claim, and I will investigate it and get back to you. And if they're a real firm and not a scam, they'll send you a letter.
Right. Well, would a Harrisburg firm have an 888 area code? Is that
888 is any toll-free number, and getting a toll-free number these days is very easy. But yeah, a lot of debt collection firms have 888 or 800 numbers historically because people who owe money a lot of times don't have long distance, especially back in the day.
right? Okay.
All right, boss. Good luck. I got to go to break.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. 540-0580. Well, we're back. 540-0580. Oh, boy. We got a whole another hour of this show, and I'm just looking out the window watching the dreary, dreary day. So hopefully you've got something planned. I guess there's some football you can watch this afternoon because I'm calling this my little Penn State tailgate broadcast here. Used to be that this station covered Penn State, and I'd get bumped on Penn State Day so that they could cover. So I would get those Saturdays off. But no more Penn State breaks for me. Oh, boy. What is I going to tell you about? Oh, okay. So let's talk about something here. Let's talk about how we I'm going to call this a thinking man's exercise or thinking woman's exercise. We've got this report about Ray Graycar, right? And it says, an alleged former member of the Hells Angel motorcycle gang who has told authorities in the Altoona Mirror that Graycar was murdered by the gang as retaliation for prosecuting one of its members, who also happened to be an informant for the FBI. Okay? And then the guy says his body, the unidentified man claimed in a story in Friday's Altoona Mirror, was buried in a Pennsylvania mine shaft with 4 others and a cache of weapons. Now, let's think this through. Does this sound plausible? Maybe. Probably not. And here's why. Look at his story. Right now, I see an internal flaw in this story. If I'm going to bury your body and a few other bodies that I don't want to see again and don't want to be linked to, I'm not going to put a cache of weapons in the same mine shaft as the body so that when I need the weapons, I have to go back to that mine shaft to get the weapons, which will relink me to the location where the bodies I killed are buried and hidden. So his story is bunk because, I mean, maybe I guess the Hells Angels are really a bunch of dumb, drunk motorcyclists. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding. I'm just pointing out the flaw of this guy who's probably never a member, actually. This guy, some guy with a motorcycle claims that he knows this stuff. Well, anyhow, long story short, look at the internal flaw in that story. Do you guys understand? So this is how when you're a lawyer and you're cross-examining somebody and they tell you a story, the plausibility of it's important to try to figure out. And here, why he claims they buried these people with weapons. And now, maybe he told the police that we got rid of some guns and we wanted to get rid of the guns and the bodies. But again, criminals that are knowledgeable, motorcycle gangs, La Costa Nostra, those kinds of guys, they don't bury the bodies and the weapons together. You separate those things. A lot of times they separate the heads and the hands and the feet and all kinds of things to try to make it harder and more obscure to link everything together. So his story, even if it's being a little misinterpreted by the paper or the police, still doesn't make sense. So I call hooey who. Dave, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Hey, Carl. How you doing?
Good.
I'm enjoying your show.
Oh, thank you very much.
And everything. And I'm kind of glad because, well, I'm not a big Penn State fan, but I'm kind of glad that you're here today. So I enjoy listening to you right now.
I love Penn State. I just haven't been up. I just haven't been up there in a year and a half, and I'm always wondering what would happen if I showed up at a game and I get booed or cheered or nobody will care. I'm preferring that nobody will care.
Right.
Let's go to Zeno's and drink some beer.
Well, it's not that. It's just I'm not a big Penn State fan. Let's just put it that way. But I enjoy it. It was a nice Saturday day, and everything else. So personally, I'd rather listen to you than a Penn State game, right?
I appreciate that. I'll tell you what, I like professional football. College football, I don't really follow at all, but I do like one thing in college football. You can, when the game is tight and the time is running out, you can at least expect them to throw the ball.
Absolutely.
Pro football, they don't air the ball out the same way.
Right.
So I do enjoy the more exciting endings you see in some of the college games. Although way back in the day, the Buffalo Bills used to like to do that. They'd let themselves get down by about 20 points, and then with 6 minutes to spare, try to work their way back to like a 2-3 point victory. And they pulled it off a few times over the years.
Yeah. Oh, they have. Yes, I agree.
Oh well,
But you know something, Carl? I agree with what you were saying there. You know, that guy's story is kind of kablooey because why would you? And I happen to agree with you. You know, I'm former military and law enforcement myself.
Mm-hmm.
But why in the world would you put weapons with bodies? I mean, that first of all, that would not make sense to me.
Right. I mean, first of all, if you're getting rid of the weapons for purposes of hiding the murder, then putting them together means that if anybody ever finds them, then forensically they can not only be linked together, but they're already all there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 2 + 2 makes 4.
Yeah. So this guy, I mean, obviously, not only is he not being truthful, but he's not even a very smart story. A really good story would be, I'm a former Hell's Angel. They killed Greek Car. They killed Greek Car because he was an informant, and they buried him in a well or a mine shaft up on the such and such mountain. But that's all I really know about it because I was only involved. Oh, wait, now I have to say I was involved somehow. So here's my point. Like, how does this guy know, and what does he know, and does he really know? But his whole story just doesn't pass muster because even if he'd overheard something, this isn't what he would have overheard.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. Our tax-paying dollars will go to spend some money because if the police don't follow up on this lead, then later people will say,
just like they did in the city when they tore up that lot up there on, what was it, Market Street a couple months ago. Because of some story said, well, we buried these kids back in the 60s. And
right. We used to have satanic rituals at our daycare center, and we ate some of the kids, and we buried the bones out back.
Oh, God.
Do you remember that years ago when everybody believed that there was actually this giant satanic cult in the daycares? I got to go, my friend. Thank you. 540-0580. When we get back from the break, another hour, we'll talk about all the stupid things people do and all the stupid things I have to say about it. Oh, boy. Anyhow, don't forget to go to RomagerLaw.com in the meantime and check out our firm, because if you can hear this signal, we can help you in court. See you in a minute.